And we have different approaches to the same concept from the perspective of the psychological and the biological sciences ever since the time of evolution. And Professor, having a background in psychology, this term is called homeostasis, or it is called even homeoresis. Kinetic? No, homeostasis you are talking about. It is also called homeoresis. So that is the Siddha Prajna, where you are completely going away from the suppression of the higher mind by the lower mind and coming into the higher realms of consciousness where evolution is stabilized and all the lower instincts are transcended and one becomes the realized one. And so you will listen to Professor and his version and welcome Professor.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. And it's a great pleasure and honor to present to you about this relatively new idea of homeokinetic mind. So Arjuna asked a crucial question. Sthita prajnasya ka bhasha samadhistasya keshava sthitarihi kim prabhasheta kimasita vrajeta ki. What, O Keshava, is the description of the person of steady wisdom merged in samadhi? How does he or she speak, sit, or walk? So, Sri Krishna, in fact, gives a more comprehensive answer in the 12th Adhyaya. And what he says, Adveshta sarva bhutanam maitra karuna evacha nirmamo nirahankaraha samadukhas sukhakshami santushtas satatam yogi yatatma druda nishchayaha mayyarpita manor buddhiryo madbhakta same priya. He who hates no one and is friendly and compassionate to all, who is free from from the feelings of I, me and mine, even-minded in pain and pleasure, forgiving, ever content, steady in meditation, self-controlled, and possessed of firm conviction, with mind and intellect fixed on me, he who is thus devoted to me is dear to me. So this brings out a lot of features of an enlightened, wise person with absolute clarity and equanimity. Like in Buddhism, we call it samatha and vipassana. Samatha is the equality of emotions, and vipassana is the absolute present-mindedness, which I'll come to that. Brahma Sutra describes the state of equanimity as achalatvam. Achalatvam, the state of equanimity and stillness, after emergence of speech or vaka into mind, which is manasa, or emotional thinking, mind into breath energy, prana shakti, breath awareness into witnessing awareness, sakshin or chaitanya, which is his true nature. Tat atmakatvam. Such a person is truly free, which is mukta, and has no other ruler. Ananya adhipati. Like in Zen, there is a good saying, it says, don't put any head above yours. You see? That's the swadharma, that's the absolute self-freedom, that you decide things for yourself from your own understanding, clarity and equanimity. And swapyat is the process of self-mergence. But what is interesting in this book by Scott Kelso, who talks about complementary nature, that there are so-called opposing forces or processes that are in fact complementary, like light and dark, white and black, violence and peace. On the surface they look opposing, but in nature they in fact work together and they create a phenomenon that is very complex. And I'll give you several examples of this. Swapyat means the process of self-mergence. Kshanika is the momentary nature of ego. It's only kshana. And I will show you how a conscious moment in terms of electrophysiology by millisecond. I'll show you that. And Shashvatatnyaha, enduring self-consciousness, what Raji called cognizing self. See, we have this feeling of both, that I am this momentary ego that is speaking now, but I am also the same person that I was 5 years ago, when I was a 5-year-old child. So it depends on our perspective, our perception at this given moment, how you look at it. So there is what I call a fundamental ambiguity in phenomena and us. There are ambiguous figures, some of you are very familiar with it, like an old woman or a young woman. The drawing remains the same, but it depends on your perspective. There are same way, I'll show you some examples. So what is homeokinetics? Homeokinetics was a term. By the way, those who would like my full article, just give me an email address and I'll send you the full article. It's being considered for publication. So homeokinetics is an extension of the concept of homeostasis. Homeo means the same, and stasis means a steady state, and kinetics means a dynamic movement. So a lot of events in nature remain the same, and they are also changing. One good example is a river. You can say river, no, this river is the same. St. John's River, it has been there for thousands of years. Ganga is the same. But if you take a molecular perspective, every molecule of that water is changing every second. There is nothing the same. Same is true of our human body. Every molecule in my body has been changed over these years. But still, I am the same person that I was. This reminded me of a famous quote from Upanishad. Tadejati tannai taddure tadvantike tadantarasya sarvasya tadu sarvasyasya bahyatah. It moves and it moves not. It is far away, it is so near. It is inside me and it is outside everywhere. So this is this ambiguity or complexity which is inherent in natural events. And this complexity gives us tremendous flexibility and creativity. That's why there is such a great creativity in nature. So homeostasis is defined as a tendency toward a relatively stable internal environment in organisms through interacting physiological processes. Homeokinetics is the dynamic maintenance of a relatively stable internal state over time of an organism by means of both subconscious as well as conscious. This is very important. A lot of physiological processes are automatic adjustments, automatic homeostasis, like heart rate. When you exercise, the heart rate goes up. When you sit down, the heart rate comes down by itself. Our oxygen level, CO2 level, pH, blood pressure, blood glucose, all these are done without any awareness. And thank God for that we don't fiddle with it. And that's why we are alive, well, and thinking and conscious. But we also have the freedom to make a good choice what is benevolent and what is harmful. And that is a conscious decision we make from moment to moment, every conscious step. And that's up to us. That's self-conscious self-regulation. And that's a major part of education. It also includes a stable and psychological condition of an individual with respect to opponent psychodynamic forces like drives, desires, emotions, and motivations. Here's a beautiful example. I want to show you some examples of homeokinetic forces and homeokinetic process. We recently visited Yosemite, and this is Bridal Veil Falls. It was an amazing sight. It was in the afternoon, and we were lucky not only to see the wonderful fall and the clear blue sky with some clouds and this appearance of rainbow. We watched for half an hour, 1 hour. And This exemplifies several factors. For example, somebody might say, oh, this bridal web fall, I've seen it 10 years ago, it's the same as it was. And you can be blind and deaf to the present wonder, you see. You can say that this fall is continuously new. Every moment of it, every particle of it is new and amazing. Then there are forces. Maybe it had rained last night and the fall has become bigger, or there was a drought and the fall had become small. So there are endogenous factors. Or there is a great wind and it blows the fall this way. In fact, there was wind and you can see the fall is being pushed this way. Then it falls on these big rocks and creates this mist. And out of this mist, the sun is shining. And we are observing at a particular angle, and that creates the phenomenon of rainbow. And the natural reality is the wonder like that. It is the rainbow. It's not a thing you can grasp or control or demand or do anything about. But it's that wonder that somehow spontaneously emerges from moment to moment. And if you are awake, observant, and listening, it manifests every second, every moment. Another good example of homeokinetics is the school of fish. I think I'm getting too warm here. The school of fish, every school acts as an individual. See? Every school, every fish acts as an individual. But the school as a whole, thousands of fish, it works together collectively and acts as if it's an organism by itself. It's amazing. And in homeokinetics, the two main variables, one is what they call the elemental variable or the atomisms. Iberol used the term atomisms or elemental or individual. And the second variable is the collective variable, how the group as a whole acts. And the collective and the individual, there is a continuous interaction between the two. You see? And this interaction creates something new and different. See, this is a school of fish. There is some security in grouping together. But there is also a danger. A big predator comes and eats the whole thing like a ball of fish. You know, it can eat 10,000 fish in one gulp, some of it. But if this predator goes through the school of fish, it can split it, divide it, but the school comes back together. Another important factor is the mother elephant. Based on her experience and memory, she can guide the whole herd to a water hole in a desert and rescue the whole set of animals. So this is what is called functional information. It is the functional information in an individual that could save the whole herd. If she had Alzheimer's, or her memory was poor, or there was some other reason, then the whole herd will die, you know, without water. Communal feeding, communal communication and group security, mother and child. You know, even in such a group, the mother finds the baby exactly how, you don't know, by the sound it produces, finds exactly. So this is the general equation, like E equals mc squared. In the same way, this is a generic mathematical equation about figuring out how this works, how the coordination dynamic works. CV dot means the rate of change of collective variable. CV is the instantaneous value of collective variable. CP is the control parameters or individual variables. And F is the spontaneous fluctuations in the area. This spontaneous fluctuations is very important. The nature is full of that. And that's why there is so much flexibility and creativity. As in Gita it says, Daivam Chaivatra Panchamam. That fifth factor is always there no matter what you do. Other thing to remember in coordination dynamics, there are this is called the repeller state and this is called the attractor state. By gravity, this is a skateboarder. To stay here is very easy. That's where the gravity takes you there. You don't need to do anything. But to take yourself high up here and to balance here at the peak of the mountain, that's very difficult. Initially, it requires a lot of effort, just like in meditation. This I call the Turiya state. If you can relax at that peak and be at ease with yourself and at home in the world, then you got it. This concept of homeostasis was initially described by Claude Bernard, a French physiologist, in 1800s. What he said that each organism is an integrated or organic unified community of cells. And these cells are surrounded by extracellular fluid. And what he argues that this extracellular fluid, which is this, is critically maintained, its composition between the environment and the community of cells, because the life depends on that. Then it was Walter Cannon, an American physiologist from Harvard actually, who coined the term homeostasis and published a book called Wisdom of the Body. And this circulatory system is like the river within that nourishes all the organs and cells of the body with each heartbeat. Again, I agree with Raju that these elements can't be homogeneous. Each element is different, like the organs in the body. Heart does its own thing, liver does its own thing, kidney does its own thing, brain does something specialized. And they all work together as an organic unity and hopefully eventually an integral unity. So is the respiration. The respiratory system provides oxygen, removes carbon dioxide from each cell body, each body cell. Each cell then metabolizes and creates vital energy in the form of ATP molecules, which are used for growth and work. It is truly the source of biophysical energy, pranashakti. Inhalation and exhalation are opposing but complementary processes. Now this is a very important concept. That inhalation is taking in, exhalation is taking, breathing out. They look opposing, but they are absolutely complementary. You can't be inhaling all the time or you could be exhaling all the time. They have to work together as a complementary process. And I'll show you several examples of that. There are three modes of cellular communication. One is that this is the source cells and these are target cells. And these cells produce a hormone which then goes through this river of blood and these have specialized receptors. The target cells respond to that. But the non-target cells are not affected by it. So there are these chemical messages in the body that specifically target different populations of cells without influencing the general population. Then there is paracrine between two cells, between one neuron and the other. Electrical impulse comes here, it releases molecules, it affects the next neuron, and then it produces a network of neurons. And finally, the autocrine. Autocrine is this cells secrete some hormones, and it has receptors on itself. So as soon as the hormone level increases, it knows that there is too much hormone. This is a model for self-regulation. That's how cells can regulate themselves, organisms can regulate themselves. And up there, of course, there is continuous exchange of molecules, energy, and information between the human organism and its environment. Body temperature and energy are continuously balanced and maintained by homeokinetic mechanisms. Heat regulation, temperature regulation is continuously being done. So in that sense, we are thermodynamically open systems. here are the autonomic nervous system are supposed to be known. That the sympathetic nervous system and the parasympathetic nervous system affect every organ in the body in a complementary way. The sympathetic nervous system dilates the pupil, parasympathetic constricts it. Breathing, it dilates bronchi, while this is constricts it. Heart rate, sympathetic nervous system increases the heart rate, parasympathetic brings it down. So every organ is affected or regulated by this complementary nature. Same thing, flexion and extension. All muscles of the body, flexors and extensors, we have to work against the gravity, anti-gravity muscles and pro-gravity muscles. And one point is that the principles of homeokinetics applies to both living as well as non-living systems. Just like gravity does. Gravity affects living human beings as well as dead human beings. You know, whatever the object is. So it's a very universal principle. Here, just I want to show you that the nervous system is organized in such a way that a flexor motor neuron is excited and it produces this muscle activity. At the same time, it sends a message to the extensor motor neuron to stay quiet. It inhibits this, so you can see the alternation. So there is no, frontal war between the two opposing forces. They in fact cooperate. You see, they complement each other. Same thing with the eyesight, the left eye and the right eye. In fact, left eye sees a certain amount of visual field, the right eye sees a certain amount of visual field. And as we grow up from childhood, we integrate the left and the right eye information in the brain and see a single unified seamless picture. But that happens in the brain. It's not the actuality, the reality. In fact, the image is projected from retina to the brain is upside down, but we'll learn to see it in the right way. Here, even at the cortical level, you can see the right eye, left eye, right eye, left eye. But these are all integrated together in the cortical neurons. Now let me come to the emotional aspect of it. We have a whole spectrum of emotions. See, we have like apprehension, fear, terror. On the other side, there is pleasure, elation, ecstasy. On this axis, we have frustration, anger, rage, and here we have the relief, sadness, grief. These emotions seem apparently pretty opposite, but they come back to this neutral point. You return to the normalcy, you return to the equanimity, you see. You don't stay angry for the rest of your life, hope not. Eventually it subsides. You don't stay sad for the rest of your life. Unfortunately, some people don't come back to this neutral point. In a game of tennis, for example, after taking a shot at the net, you have to come back to the neutral point. It's the same way. Here's a quick emotional transition from peace to fear. This is the process of morphing, computer morphing, from relatively peaceful phase to a fearful phase. Now, the point I want to make here, even in this transformation from here to here, there is what I call probability scale, like 0 to 1. You see? Here, to say that this man is fearful won't be right. The probability is 0. Here, to say this man is fearful is 1, almost certainty. But here, the probability is different, and the values will differ between 0 to 1. And that's one of the dimensions, even in the physics field. Like Euclidean geometry talks about, the 3 dimensions. Then Riemann geometry talks about the 4th dimension, which is time. And the 5th dimension is the probability. What is the probability of this particular event to occur at this particular moment in time in such a way? And one more dimension is the observer. whether the observer is a living person or is it a camera that's just recording, the waterfall. The camera can record up to nanotechnology, nanosecond, we have nanotechnology. But eventually it is the human observer that interprets those results. Of course, the limbic system that processes visceral reactions, emotions, energy, motivations, When we are under emotional stress, the whole body responds. Every organ of the body responds. And not only that, it secretes a lot of electrical discharges, chemical discharges, and all that information goes back to the brain. And that's how we know that, oh, I'm afraid, or I'm fearful, or I'm angry, or I'm happy, or whatever. There is a good relationship between our emotional thinking and respiration. If you are anxious, nervous, then your heart rate and breathing goes fast. If you are calm and peaceful and quiet, then the heart rate comes down, breathing comes down, and you feel peaceful. And that is the basis of pranayama. You deliberately slow your breathing down, slow your heart down, calm your emotions, and that affects the overall attitude and your state of mind. So it works both ways. It's mutual. Now I want to go to the two opposing but complementary process of sleep and wakefulness. In the sleep medicine literature, there is a model called two-process model. Two processes are this C process and S process. C process is our wakefulness, and S process is the sleep factor. Now when we are awake during the day, by the time this sleep factor keeps increasing, and when it is 11 or 12 o'clock midnight, you cross the threshold and you fall asleep. And when in the morning 7 or 8 o'clock, the wake factor comes up, crosses this, and you are awake again. So these two factors, sleep and wakefulness, process C and process S, are complementing each other. And that's why we don't fall asleep and stay asleep all the time, or we don't stay awake all the time. If you stay awake for more than 11 days, you will die. So it is complementary, the sleep and wake state. Now this is important, that this homeostatic drive for sleep is continuously there, circadian drive for wakefulness is there, endogenous stimuli are there, and the exogenous stimuli are there. And what happens at this given moment depends on all these variables coming together. I'll go into that a little further. People have figured it out that in the brainstem, this red area, all these red areas are essential for wakefulness. If you destroy these areas, you will be in coma for the rest of your life. You will never be awake. Then green area is for deep sleep. There are chemicals that are released by this area which are absolutely essential. If that is destroyed, you won't be able to sleep. And then this orange area is for dream sleep. And there are specific chemicals for each of these different stages of sleep and wakefulness. And these are some of the chemicals, like norepinephrine, serotonin, dopamine, acetylcholine. And during wakeful state, all of these are active at a certain optimal level. In dream sleep, norepinephrine and dopamine are quiescent, but acetylcholine is very active and serotonin is active.
Sir, you have 5 minutes more.
Okay. One point is, as in Mandukya Upanishad, even in deep sleep, the mind is active. You can't say, unfortunately, some of the Western philosophers are talking about consciousness only from dream wakefulness. That's all they talk about. They think deep sleep has nothing to do with consciousness. And that's not true. There is consciousness in deep sleep also. For example, this sleepwalking, night terrors, all this goes on during deep sleep. I'm sorry, I have to skip some of these slides. People have figured out different processes between subconscious and conscious processes. For example, if I suddenly see a snake, I wouldn't be thinking about it. I'll jump away from it, right? So this information comes here, goes to the subcortex, the brainstem takes over and acts on it. Brainstem and limbic system. The cortex is not involved. You see? But in conscious visual processing, it goes here, then it goes to the temporal area, memory area, association cortex. It thinks about it, talks about it, thinks about it, and makes a decision. Now, this is my model of consciousness. What I say that our consciousness defines the present moment, and the present reality in turn defines the present moment of consciousness. It's a kind of mutual interrelationship. This is process C, process sleep, intrinsic energies and information, environmental energies and information, present action, present cognition. Here you need to remember there is a whole context, what I call the matrix. I briefly mentioned that yesterday, that attention has two modes. One is matrix or the ground mode, which is the context of everything, and the vector mode. This is the vector. And this is kshana, this is conscious moment, present cognition. And the vector creates the duality of me and the other, or whatever, I am the doer and the deed, whatever that is. But the context is always there, and that is the great continuum, that is the great background. I don't have too much time to go into this. But our sense of self or agent emerges from multiple levels, neural levels, intention, action, outcome, prediction and reconstruction, sense of voluntary control, that I did it. It wasn't a knee-jerk, it wasn't a reflex. I did that intentionally. And that feeling gives us a sense of agency. This is a little more complex, but I can just briefly tell you, people have mapped out measuring conscious intention. This is, the task was to look at the clock and notice the position of the hand when you have the urge to act or conscious intention. Press the button and tell the person what was the position of the hand. And here, before there is a whole preparation of the brain up to the decision making. This is the intention, and this is the actual pressing of the button and the movement. There is a difference between intention and action is about 200 milliseconds. 1 millisecond is 1,000th of a second. And this conscious action takes about anywhere from 300 milliseconds. So one can make about 2 to 3 conscious decisions in 1 second. There is an interesting book called The First Half Second. In half second, what happens electrophysiologically in the brain? Now, what we perceive is not what actually is there. We continuously create a hypothesis about what is there, and we test that hypothesis against what is there. Like this figure and ground, you may see this man here, but there is also an elephant here, the fish here, the guitar there. So there are this ambiguity between figure and ground. Now briefly, we also have the concept of Annamaya Kosh, Pranamaya Kosh. So we are surrounded by environment. Organism is never isolated. Organism and environment are always integrated. We are integrated. We are in nature and nature is within us. In yoga, there is this concept of convergence and divergence, Pratyak Chetana and Paranga Chetana. Contents of consciousness. During consciousness, we try to let go. You see, we have a working memory, and the working memory can hold about 7 plus or minus 2 items, independent items, at any given moment. Like remembering a telephone number. 7 or 8 or 9, that's it. Of course, the Avdhanis have achieved a lot more, it looks like.
Professor,
But the
suppose you have to
yeah, okay. But in Nirbija Samadhi, you reach the stage of silence, spaciousness, equanimity. This is the point of expansion of awareness. Now, this is what I was telling about. This is the process: see, sleep, deep sleep, REM sleep, wake, attentive, vigilant, creative, and turiya. Turiya is the fourth state. Turiya is the fourth state of consciousness. It is an externally inspired state of calm, alert, and intuitive consciousness with self-integration as described in Mandukya Upanishad. Turiya is a unique conscious state of non-rapid eye movement wakefulness, an optimal attentiveness with freedom from daydreaming and intrusive thoughts, behavioral quiescence in silence with no internal speech and rapid eye movements, heightened perceptual clarity and moment-to-moment with cognitive excellence, and an enhanced sense of well-being and serenity. I won't go into this. This is the witness consciousness which is being taught by the psychological counselors. That they are teaching mindfulness and witness consciousness in all psychological counseling. This is my last slide, and I want to share a poem with you that was inspired and that I wrote, which kind of summarizes. This is called A River and a Lake. A river is a lake that is in a hurry to reach the ocean. A river is a lake that is in a hurry to reach the ocean. A lake is a river that pauses to look at the blue sky. A lake is a river that pauses to look at the blue sky. A river carves out of time and knows the time. A lake reflects on eternity and knows the timeless. A skillful mind can flow like a river and stand still like a lake. It depends on the terrain it faces at the present moment. It lives with joy and spontaneity, sometimes like a river, sometimes like a lake. Thank you.
Professor, for his excellent presentation, and this is what we have to see here, the concept. When we take up from the unicellular animals up to the complex human being, evolution is instinctive and physiological, driven by biological needs for food and procreation and all that. But when it comes up to the higher level of the human being, evolution is psychological or mental. And as Professor said, you have a willpower to make conscious choices and all that. It is because of the mind which is the distinguishing criterion. And that is why the Upanishads say that mind is responsible for one's bondage and liberation. And all these emotions that you see here we call them lower emotions if they push the person into bondage. They are the Hasuri Gunas which are identified in the Bhagavad Gita. And then you find the higher emotions that make a person more altruistic and more universal in their approach to the phenomena and the people around. And the evolution there is going from self-centeredness to a more encompassing worldview of the world around you. And so you find that at one time all these lower emotions get done away with by conscious development of the higher mind. And in the Mandukya Upanishad, the mind is transcended. Manas becomes amanas. And in the waking, the Vedanta interpretation is, you have the three avasthas, Jagrat, Swapna and Sushupti. In waking and dreaming, both the objects that you see in the world outside visible, they are all projections of the mind. But in sleep, the mind goes from the efficient state to the causal condition. It relapses, just as an eagle goes back to the nest for a rest. And there the mind is amanas. That's why you don't have, the mind is present but not functioning to give you a knowledge situation in which you can discern a subject-object distinction. what you call Tripiti Jnana. That is not there. But in the Turiya state, the whole thing is transcended. Avidya is transcended, as a result of which the distinctions remain no more. You perceive the one behind the diversity. But this does not mean that plurality will vanish. For example, suppose you throw a plastic snake on somebody. The person believes it to be real and the person may experience fear. But after knowing that it's only a fake or a replica, the person does not have any fear anymore. It does not mean that the toy vanishes. Only the fear is gone. So also in the Sthita Prajna, they think, act and behave like normal human beings all the time, knowing well that they are only an actor, not the person behind, while they play the role. So it is, the session is open now for discussion for 5 minutes.
Yes, sir.
Very brief question, I want that you recite, Ashwat. One clarification, you referred in excellent dissertation about the returning to the internal state of stability. I'm presenting a paper on Wednesday in University of Utrecht on global response to climate change from the Upanishadic perspective. This is layman like me and others. One of the themes that I am focusing on is that we do not return to an internal state of stability. Rita, the only state of stability was prior to creation. When the gunas were in perfect state of equilibrium, after that it is order, slight mutation, and the mutation creates a new order. Disruption, chaos, but a new order, but not the internal state like the pendulum.
I agree with that. We don't return to the absolute zero. We can't go back to the point of conception when I was conceived. You can never go back. You can only go back to a relative equilibrium, relatively stable state. But there is also a sort of progression, sort of upgrading from historical moment, to some extent. Like the concept of Jagannath as a Rath is the chariot of Jagannath. That is continuously evolving. So there is a concept of evolution in Vedanta also. The whole nature is evolving in certain sense at the phenomenal level. At the absolute level, there is no change, it's the same. But at phenomenal level, the whole nature, including us, is continuously changing in a certain way. And still it remains about the same.
So creating disorder and chaos also along the way.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
I'd be very interested to know, I'm not a scientist, how you describe the concept sthita prajna in the technical terms that you brought in. We understand in our terms, and the Gita has explained how you behave, how you sit, how you, but in your terms, the chemical and physiological.
Okay. You see, the state of Sthita Prajna has, of course, multiple aspects of it. It's the physical aspect of my body. We have the context. And my body will be completely at ease with itself and at home in the world. You see, my blood pressure, pulse, heart rate, everything will be at an optimum level. My mind will not be running after something or running away from anything. You see, it will stay in the moment, at ease with itself, perfectly calm, but absolutely awake.
Yeah, we know that.
Yeah. So, and then I'm not even searching. There is not even desire to know something. You see, even the search ends, which is beautiful. So it is such an ultimate state that remains. But it doesn't mean you stay in that state all the time. You come back to the phenomenon, and interact, you work on it. But you have this background, you act with this stability within you, the silence, the peace, and it becomes resilient. Like Nirvata Deepa even. It's like a Deepa that is not. Sorry. Thank you.